Hi, my name is Jamie Seek. I'm the Speech Language and Related Services Manager at the Tennessee Department of Education. Thank you for joining me for today's session entitled Access to Education Through Assistive Technology. Let's get started. Today's session will first of all recognize how assistive technology, or AT, is a strategy or a tool in our students' toolboxes. We'll review how technology and assistive technology really fit into the educational environment as a whole. We will also look at a broader understanding of assistive technology by really tackling a few of the myths and realities around assistive technology. And then last but not least, we'll look into some various case studies and scenarios and consider how can assistive technology support our students with disabilities and potentially all students. Let's get started. When we think about assistive technology, it can absolutely be a pretty powerful strategy for our students. And we know that the use of strategies is such a powerful thing for all of our students. We certainly want to empower them by giving them as many potential strategies that as they can potentially use as they go throughout their educational journey. And one of the questions that I want us to think about as we're listening to today's session is whether or not our students have the right tools to actually optimize their learning and engagement. And as we're thinking about that question, one of the things that I want you to consider is whether or not one of those tools could potentially be assistive technology. How can we consider that as a potential strategy for our students? This is a graphic that you're probably familiar with. It certainly digs into the concepts of equality and equity. On the left side of the graphic, you'll see the concept of equality being represented and the fact that it's equal rights and equal opportunities for all of our students. So all of our students have the same expectations, the same materials, the same resources, and there's not always that consideration for individual differences. So all students have one book and it's the same book. However, when we shift to the right side of the graphic, we start to see that concept of equity really being fleshed out in terms of the fact that we may have different and individualized tools for our students in order for them to support their academic learning, in order for them to really engage in social success in the educational environment. So we start to see that maybe some students need more books and some students may need fewer books in order for them to really engage and be successful in the educational setting. But let's take this graphic one step further. If we add access, or if we think about access, because that's certainly a term that we hear quite a bit of today, we look at access as really a removal of barriers so that our students have that equal and equitable access within the educational space. And again, orienting ourselves to the right side of this graphic, we see that sometimes we actually have to continue to individualize, that maybe what we present as a potential strategy, the box, is not the strategy that our student needs at all. Maybe sometimes our students don't need the box. Sometimes our student needs two boxes, and sometimes our student needs a completely different strategy. Our student may need a ramp to really allow our student to engage in the exact same in entertainment, to engage in the exact same content, engage in the exact same learning. Again, it's that removal of barriers, and assistive technology can play a pretty powerful role in that conversation around access. So now that we've kind of laid the foundation or laid the groundwork to consider how can assistive technology be a part of this larger access conversation, let's think about how assistive technology actually plays into the role of technology in education in general. We know, and we can certainly see this umbrella term on the screen, we know that assistive technology is pretty broad. It covers a lot of domains. We'll take a look at those domains in just a minute. But we know that assistive technology is a broad term that consists of both the tools as well as the services that really help to support our students. We know that assistive technology is not just the tool itself. So it's not just the pencil grip. It's not just the slant board. It's not just the picture symbols. It's not just the adaptive eating utensils, but it can also be the services that the student needs to really help support and implement those tools that are needed. So it's a pretty broad term that really, again, helps to support that student in the educational space. But how does assistive technology actually fit into this larger spectrum of the technology that we may see in the educational environment? I think here's a pretty good graphic that really shows that assistive technology is part of a larger technology continuum. And I think it's important for us to remember that assistive technology is not isolated in and of itself. It certainly is part of a larger technology conversation in the educational space. So on the left side of the screen, we see something called educational technology or ed tech. When we think about ed tech, we really think about that experience, those opportunities with technology that help to support the curriculum. It doesn't replace the curriculum, but it helps to support the curriculum. One of the things that I automatically think of, my absolute favorite ed tech experience is Oregon Trail. I used it as when I was growing up as a student, and I also had students who used it. Brain Pop is another great example of ed tech. Again, it helps to support that information that the teacher is providing, the curriculum that the teacher is teaching, but it doesn't replace that. In the middle, we have informational technology or IT. And oftentimes when we think about IT, we really think of the networks that help connect, that help our schools communicate with one another. We think of the hardware, the software, and that's usually a conversation around, are we a Microsoft district? Are we an Apple district? Do we use iOS? What is our hardware? What is our software? What networking systems do we utilize? Usually when our systems go offline, we think of contacting our IT department. If we have to, or if we want to add apps onto any sort of tablet, we usually contact IT. A lot of times when we have that conversation around accessibility features, IT is certainly an important member of that conversation. And then when we go to the right side of the screen, we really start to talk about assistive technology. And when we think about assistive technology, that really provides that pathway for our students with disabilities to engage in learning, to engage in social opportunities that otherwise they would not have that opportunity to do so. If we think about the graphic of equality and equity, it really does provide that access. It removes those barriers. And some examples there, we've talked about a few of them when we looked at the umbrella term, but it might be a communication board or an e-tablet or pencil grips. We're certainly going to look at assistive technology as necessary and needed for our students with disabilities as part of their provision of a free and appropriate public education, and that should be a part of their individualized education program. However, we're also going to look later on in today's session, we're going to take a look at the possibility of assistive technology as being a support that could also be universal or something that could be supportive for so many of your students in your classrooms. We've already alluded to quite a few of these concepts, but again, just coming back to the fact that assistive technology really supports that access for your students. It helps to level the playing field. It doesn't change the playing field. It doesn't change what the students are engaging in. It gives them an opportunity to engage with the learning material, with the extracurricular activities in a way that they can do so, that they may not have otherwise had an opportunity to do. It allows them to have those opportunities and increase that post-secondary success. And one of the things that I want to really highlight is that assistive technology is more than just a communication device. Oftentimes when people think of AT, they automatically think of a communication device. They automatically think of a communication system. We're actually going to take a look at the fact that assistive technology is so much more than. And when we look at all of the different functional domains, you'll see the breadth and scope of assistive technology. It really helps to span the educational day of our students across not only their school day, but also extracurricular activities. And you'll see that communication is but one piece of assistive technology. So AT really leans into academics. It leans into self-help with adapted. It leans into social, emotional, and physical needs. So accessing the educational setting, accessing the educational environment, and then, of course, our communication. How are we able to express ourselves and really engage with the learning through a communication modality? As we now look into kind of setting that foundation of what assistive technology is, how can it help us with access, really fitting assistive technology into the larger landscape of technology in the educational setting, let's continue to broaden that understanding of assistive technology by looking at some myths and realities. So we're going to take a look at 8 myths that you see on your screen today. Our first myth is oftentimes that assistive technology is expensive. Now, we certainly want to acknowledge that there are assistive technology systems, tools, devices that can be expensive. Oftentimes that comes in the world of speech generating devices, and they can be costly. However, there are certainly low cost and no cost options for assistive technology. Those are some things that I would oftentimes use. For example, a page turner could be certainly low cost, like a paperclip, right? You can use a paperclip or a clip binder that would be utilized as a page turner, or sometimes you'll hear them called page fluffers. So certainly things that are low cost or no cost options for assistive technology. The second myth is that assistive technology is only for certain students. And oftentimes we'll hear that if a student is in or under a certain eligibility category, that assistive technology is not needed. And we usually hear that for a lot of our high incidence disabilities, such as speech or language impairment, such as specific learning disability or other health impairment. But what we do know is that assistive technology is a consideration for all of our students with an IEP. There is no prerequisite for assistive technology consideration. And if we think about the flow of our IEPs, we know that that consideration of special factors is there for all of our students, no matter the eligibility category. So it's important for your IEP teams to really consider and think about those questions of, is assistive technology necessary for that provision of a free, appropriate public education for all eligibility categories? And I would say that the assistive technology is very powerful for a lot of our high incidence disabilities, just as much as it can be for our low incidence disabilities. The third myth there is that accessibility features are the same as AT. And this can be a really confusing one, actually. I would say that it truly depends. There is oftentimes this idea that an accessibility feature, such as speech to text, is an automatic AT, but it doesn't have to be. Accessibility features are oftentimes considered to be more universal features, but once that universal feature, again, becomes necessary for a student with a disability, and it's necessary for that provision of FAPE, or free appropriate public education, and it is listed as part of that student's individualized education program, then an accessibility feature can also be part of assistive technology. But an accessibility feature in and of itself, like maybe increased font size or a different font, is not assistive technology in and of itself, until the IEP team really has that conversation around what is necessary for a free, appropriate public education. The last myth on the left side of the screen is whether or not assistive technology leads to lowered student outcomes. This is oftentimes a question that I will receive not only from educators, service providers, but also from parents. Usually there's a lot of concern around whether or not implementing or adding assistive technology will actually lead to a decreased motivation. And we know that that's actually a myth. And the reality is that assistive technology, the accurate assistive technology, helps to actually improve those student outcomes and leads to post-secondary success. Because again, if we think back to earlier slides, assistive technology helps to remove barriers. It provides a pathway for our students to engage in learning and to engage in opportunities that they otherwise would not have been able to do so. When we shift to the right-hand side of the screen, if we look at that first myth at the top, usually there's this idea that there has to be an AT specialist to provide assistive technology. But what we know is that assistive technology can be provided by any qualified individual in the local education agency. And I think that makes it so unique and so specialized in terms of the fact that anyone can be a part of that specialist conversation. You don't need that one unique AT specialist, that the general education teacher can be a part of that AT specialty team. The special education teacher can be a part of that specialty conversation. The speech language pathologist, the occupational therapist, the physical therapist, all of those individuals can be a part of that conversation around AT specialty and really implementation of the assistive technology. There doesn't have to be that one unique AT specialist to provide AT implementation. The next myth really speaks to whether or not assistive technology is considered on an annual basis. Oftentimes there's an understanding or a myth that assistive technology, once it's been considered once, it's all it needs to be considered. But again, very much in a similar vein to the fact that there is no prerequisite consideration for assistive technology, we know that assistive technology needs to be considered at least annually or more frequently if needed. And again, that's part of the child's individualized education program. The next myth there is that it is the student's job to know the AT. And we would really challenge y'all to say that training for the student, if we think again back to an earlier slide, we think about the umbrella, that we know that assistive technology is not just the tool or device, but it's also the services that the student needs. And sometimes the student needs those services to help with the implementation, to help with the training. So it's not all the student's burden to automatically have an assistive technology tool or device and then know how to use it, know how to implement it, know how to use and implement it across all of the different settings in which it may need to be utilized. So again, thinking about all of the different environments in which that assistive technology needs to be utilized effectively, that could be an area where, again, your general education teacher, your special education teacher, your related service providers can really be powerful support personnel to ensure that that implementation is effective for the student. And then last but not least is the idea that an assistive technology evaluation is required. We do know that an assistive technology can sometimes be helpful, but it's not a requirement for the IEP team to consider or to start trialing or start using assistive technology with a student. Usually that assistive technology is required or needed when the IEP team does not know what assistive technology the student may need. The team may have tried many different items and we're still not landing on the assistive technology that is supportive for that student, that is really opening up that pathway. So then we may lean into that assistive technology evaluation to help provide that discrete information around what assistive technology tool or device would be the most helpful. But it is not an immediate requirement once the team feels that and has the data to really dig into the fact that assistive technology is something that should be considered. So now that we have kind of broadened our understanding of assistive technology, let's look at what this means in the classroom. And the first thing we're going to look at here is some different areas across a student's day, such as reading, math, communication, writing. And we're going to take a look at some different assistive technology tools that you may have seen before. Some maybe you're not familiar with, and consider how they could be utilized, right? So in the communication realm, over here all the way on the far right, some of these you may have seen, you may have utilized some of these in your classroom, you may have talked about some of these in your IEP teams, but you may look at using object communication boards, or picture communication boards, or single message and multi-message voice output devices. Also moving now to reading. I mentioned high incidence disabilities like specific learning disability, other health impairment. Using things such as a highlighter, reading windows, an electronic reader. E-readers are something that can be very powerful for our students with reading concerns. That can be something that the team can trial and see how the student does with that. Does that e-reader help to support comprehension, help to also allow the student, not only while he continues to work on learning reading, but give that success with the reading experience. Magnification systems. Again, do we need to look at something that would be larger, right? Would that help to really increase that success with the reading experience. Sticky notes, I think that can be utilized across so many of these different domains. It was something that I utilized quite a bit in my own work when I had a workload. I used it quite a bit for just taking notes, taking quick notes when we were reading. Let's jot down a quick detail. We worked on it with communication. Let's write down our question that we want to ask. So lots of different ways that sticky notes can be utilized across different areas. Also with math, I think digital worksheets, something that could be helpful if we really are having a student that may struggle with using the paper pencil worksheets. Maybe a digital worksheet would be better. Or graph paper. Graph paper was something that I used quite a bit in my own educational experience. And I think sometimes it can be underutilized. It can be quite a powerful tool for a lot of our students who may need support with math, as well as with just a lot of their sizing needs. Raised line paper, also rubber stamps, right? If we are still working on a lot of our fine motor skills, a lot of our written language skills, sometimes rubber stamps can help support and help our students, again, engage in that same content, engage in the same learning, but help our students show what they know through a different modality. So as we take a look at this next slide, you'll see some continued areas of our student throughout the educational day, with, again, some continued assistive technology tools, devices. These are just examples, as the note says along the bottom, certainly not an exhaustive list. There are so many assistive technology tools and devices that it would be hard to make it exhaustive. And certainly the list is growing by the day. It always amazes me how much this area continues to grow. But I wanted to really point out some of the things, such as, again, in the adaptive world, when we think about our students' independence, because we know that once they leave us in the educational space, we want our students to be as independent as possible. So helping them to think about some potential adaptive skills, thinking about the zipper pulls, right, to really help increase that success with getting ready potentially to go outside or change classes, all of those types of things. Modified drinking cups. I think about card holders. A lot of times if you have students who may not be able to hold all of the information in their hands, maybe they need different card holders to hold that information so that they can still engage in the content, engage in the learning, and still be a part of that activity, be a part of that learning with their peers. And when we think about pre-vocational and behavior and social emotional, so many different ways to really work on that executive function, work on those social emotional skills through things such as wiggle seats, seat cushions, calendars, and agendas. A lot of times calendars and agendas are things that we as adults use each and every day. I couldn't make it without my calendar. It is one of the last things I look at in the evening and one of the first things I look at in the morning. And I think it can be so important and powerful to help our students develop that as well. Again, as we're thinking about their post-secondary success and their post-secondary independence. When we also think about behavior, some of our behavioral needs for our students, really helping them to advocate for things that they need. They may need those wiggle seats, those bouncy bands to really help give them a moment to help take their own break as well. And in the social emotional, one of the things that I really think of and advocate for is allowing our students to be a part of that social aspect of school, right? And sometimes our students may need adaptive sports equipment or adaptive games and toys so that they can also be a part of that social activity, be a part of that extracurricular activity that all of our students are engaged in some way, shape, form, and fashion. So again, assistive technology can really span all aspects of our students' educational day. So as we start to look at the fact that assistive technology is pretty broad, I know those previous slides probably were a little overwhelming just in terms of looking at, wow, it can be in the adaptive realm, it can be pre-vocational, it can be reading. We are going to dig into a couple of different case scenarios. We have three to look at, and I just want you to kind of think about what could we utilize. I'm going to show you some examples as we go through and as we highlight some of the potential assistive technology needs. But as you're digging through and looking at this case scenario, think about maybe some assistive technology that you see in your school, or maybe that you've heard in an IEP meeting that might be effective. We have Willow, and Willow is a second grade student with an IEP, really for academic needs and reading fluency and math calculation. She does have a medical diagnosis of ADHD, and her parents have started to raise some concern around dysgraphia, really digging into potential some written language concerns. So, what are some assistive technology supports that we could potentially consider for Willow? What are some that maybe you've seen? And I'll give you a little bit of time to think about that. All right. Well, after having a little bit of time to think about it, let's look at some potential considerations. And again, these are just examples. And I would argue that you wouldn't want to use all of these, right? You would just want to kind of pick and choose some of those that would be the most effective for Willow. We're probably not going to add all of them into her day. Maybe adding all of them could certainly be a little overwhelming. So, really picking out the one that is the most salient and the one that is the most valuable for Willow in terms of really helping her to access and engage in the classroom. In terms of her reading, we may want to look at magnification systems or reading windows, really to help narrow that field of what she needs to read and engage in. Again, potentially increasing the font. So thinking about, we talked about accessibility features. How can that accessibility feature then potentially become an assistive technology question? And maybe some closed captioning systems. If we look at her math, because math calculation is an area of concern on her IEP, we could look at calculators or a talking calculator. That's oftentimes something that we don't think about is a talking calculator. Maybe a number line or manipulatives. Again, giving her that aspect, especially with her medical diagnosis of ADHD, maybe manipulatives would be something that could be pretty powerful for Willow. And then as we're going into potentially some of her needs for executive functioning, knowing that she may need that time to move and wiggle in her seat, maybe that wiggle stool seat or her seat cushion, giving her a chance to have an agenda so that she does remember what she needs to do for that next day, or she's able to get all of her work home in the evening to talk with her family about that, giving her that chance to use an agenda. And then if we're wanting to look at that written language, potentially a pencil grip or raised line paper. Word prediction software is so powerful. I think word prediction software for me as a speech pathologist, that was something that so many of my students utilized quite a bit of. And they were very successful with word prediction software, just in terms of communication, just in terms of building out their written language. So that's certainly something that you may want to look into. If Willow is a similar profile of students that may be in your classroom or maybe in your school. So let's dig into our second case study. This time we have Silas, and Silas is a first grader with an IEP for articulation needs. And at Silas's last IEP meeting, data indicated that his connected speech was 30% intelligible. So oftentimes he's unintelligible. It's hard for him to understand. And he's oftentimes supporting his verbal speech with a lot of facial and physical gestures. And he's even drawing out what he needs so that he can be better understood. So I'll give you a few minutes or a few seconds to think about what potential assistive technology might be utilized to help support Silas. All right. I'm sure some of these were ones that you thought of as you were thinking about Silas. And again, maybe some of these are things you have seen in your classroom, you've utilized in your classroom. And again, I want you to really think about the fact that we may not use all of these all at the same time. We really want to respond to the individual needs of our student. So really think about what our student needs. Think about how we're utilizing the assistive technology that the student would best implement and how it's really going to help support and open up that pathway and remove those barriers for our student. So given the fact that our student has articulation needs, we may use picture symbols. We may use a multi-message voice output device. I mentioned sticky notes earlier. That was certainly something I used quite a bit of, or even potentially a word processor if that's something that Silas could utilize in first grade, depending upon typing skills and familiarity and depending upon his comfort level with a word processor. So let's dig into case scenario number 3. Here we have Ava, and Ava is a 4th grade student. Ava is currently receiving modified instruction, specialized intervention in a couple of areas for language and reading. Ava is also working on increasing her independence. And we know we've talked quite a bit already about how important it is for our students to have that independence when they leave our educational setting, when they go into the post-secondary world. And she's really focusing on increasing independence with eating and also connecting with peers. So as we think about potential assistive technology that Ava may need or may utilize as part of her individualized education program, what are some things that come to mind? I'll give you a few seconds to think about that. All right, well, let's take a look at what you came up with. And some of these are things that you may also have come up with, or you may have come up with different things. And that's okay too. Again, there's no right answer to this. These really are just brainstorms of what could potentially be used. And you may have seen something else utilized with great efficiency. You may be utilizing something different in your own school district right now, and that's wonderful. Again, there's not a right answer for this because we're basing this really on what the student needs, right? It all goes back to what our student needs, what we know about our student based on current data. So in the world of communication, again, when we think about picture communication systems or picture symbols, voice output devices, an electronic tablet, potentially. When we look at reading, we've looked at this area before, but we start to see that magnification system come up again, reading window, potentially decreasing the field for Ava, again, increasing font size. When we look at some other areas, we haven't looked at socialization and independence yet in a case study, but when we look at our socialization, one of the things we talked about when we looked at all of those different aspects of our students' day was really the powerful nature of assistive technology in helping our students connect to the social aspect of their day. So thinking about adapted games, does Ava need adapted sports equipment, right, to help really Ava engage and connect with peers? Maybe a communication system as well. Maybe that's part of what her need is in terms of socialization with her peers. And then her independence with eating, really thinking about some of those adapted eating utensils, maybe a weighted spoon or a plate guard or a modified drinking cup. So again, thinking individually for our students based on what they are telling us through their data, through what we know with our current and through our current information. So I'm sure y'all came up with amazing options around assistive technology through these case studies. Great job. I mentioned at the beginning as we looked through the agenda, we were certainly going to look at assistive technology for our students with disabilities, but let's look at what would happen if we considered assistive technology as a support for all students. We're going to dig into 3 more case studies today. And here we're going to look at Jack. We see that Jack has an IEP, also with reading concerns. His IEP really digs into basic reading, reading fluency. He's reading 2 grade levels below instructional level. Jack's IEP team has indicated that there is a need for assistive technology. So what Jack's IEP team has done is they've said, in order for Jack to receive a free and appropriate public education, it is necessary for assistive technology to be a part of Jack's IEP. And that is appropriate for a student with a disability for the IEP team to have that conversation. And a part of that conversation has centered around the need for audiobooks and text to speech. Those are both assistive technology supports that Jack's IEP team has deemed necessary for access. So if we look at that as being necessary for Jack's free appropriate public education, we can then, if we slide over to the blue side of this slide, we can consider how not only are audiobooks and text-to-speech necessary for Jack, but it can be supportive for all of the students in the classroom. This, as you can see in that text box, the support provided to Jack can also benefit several other students who are not identified as students with a disability, who may have other unique learning needs. So audiobooks and text-to-speech can benefit all students, particularly students with weaker decoding and slower fluency, but strong comprehension. And that can be a great way as those students are really working on learning to read. It can continue to really lean into their strong comprehension skills and allow them to continue to develop the literacy skills that are so important, can also allow them to engage in those learning standards that are necessary for the classroom environment. So here we have a great example of how Jack's assistive technology, which is necessary for his free appropriate public education, can be supportive for all students in your classroom. Let's dig into another example. Here we have Akila. Akila has an IEP for a developmental delay with concerns in motor and academic skills. Akila's IEP team has considered assistive technology, and they have determined that there is assistive technology that is necessary for Akila's individualized education program as part of her free appropriate public education. The assistive technology that they have determined is necessary are pencil grips and a number line. So those are absolutely part of her IEP. They've determined that that is necessary for her free appropriate public education. But what we know is that the support provided to Akila is also benefiting several other students who do not have a disability, who are also in Akila's classroom. And those students may have unique learning needs, but they don't yet have an identified disability. They may not have an identified disability, but that support through pencil grips, number lines are absolutely supportive for all students in our classroom, particularly those students who are working on handwriting and math problem solving. So again, thinking about the idea that assistive technology certainly necessary for one student, Akila, but how powerful having those options available for all of our students can be. It allows for our students to really scaffold that learning and engage in the learning standards as we would want them to be able to do in that classroom setting. So last example here, let's look at Emil. And Emil has an IEP for academic needs due to other health impairment. He easily gets distracted, which impacts task completion. When Emil's team has met and considered assistive technology, they've indicated that assistive technology is necessary for his free appropriate public education, in the fact that assistive technology will support his pre-vocational skills. They've determined that a bouncy band and a wiggle stool seat are necessary for assistive technology supports. But we also know that while that is necessary for Emil and is documented in his individualized education program, we know that bouncy bands and wiggle seats can be supportive for so many students in the classroom with unique learning needs. We know that those bouncy bands and wiggle seats can benefit so many students, particularly those with focus needs, particularly students maybe with anxiety needs. Those supports can be not only necessary for one, not only necessary for Emil, but also supportive for all of our students in our classrooms. Again, really broadening out that conversation and understanding around assistive technology as we're planning for our students in our classroom. We've talked a lot about this so far, but one of the things as we're starting to close today's session, I do want to just make sure as we're documenting assistive technology, documenting AT, that assistive technology that is necessary for a student with a disability to receive that FAPE, to receive a free appropriate public education, it must be documented in the student's individualized education program, or IEP. As we start to close today, I want to make note of our assistive technology project that is part of the Tennessee Technical Assistance Network. One of the amazing things under the Tennessee Technical Assistance Network that has the assistive technology project is actually a lending library. So if your team is not sure what to consider, not sure what to try, let us know. Please feel free to reach out to Jill. She is our amazing library manager through the Assistive Technology Project. We have an amazing breadth of different devices and tools that span those different domains, as we talked about earlier. She will certainly talk you through different types of tools and devices that you may want to use, and she can send those out to you. They are at no cost trials to your local education agency. So feel free to reach out to us when you are thinking about, what do I use? I don't know what to try here. And also, I wanted to let you know about the broader assistive technology project. Again, we have, as part of that project, we have the lending library that sits in that project, but we also have a larger project called ATP that really will help if you are interested in developing out processes or procedures, or you have questions about what is assistive technology, if you have questions around how do I continue to think and consider assistive technology for my students with disabilities, please feel free to reach out to us and let us know how we can help support you. As I'm contract manager for an amazing group of assistive technology experts that work on this work, and they are ready to help you each and every day. So please let us know how we can continue to support you. As we end today's session, I want to thank you for being with me today. Please feel free to reach out to me. You'll see my email there on the left side of the screen. You can also reach out to Susan Ussery if you would like to contact her as well. But we look forward to continuing the conversation with you around assistive technology. And thank you so much for joining me today. Have a great rest of your day.